At dawn in the cold Nordic forests, every hunt meant more than survival. To the Vikings, animals were not just food. They became clothing, weapons, tools, and even sacred symbols. Nothing was wasted because every bone, sinew, and hide carried value. This wasn't just hunting, it was brilliance in survival, and it shaped Viking life in ways that still amaze us today. In the icy lands of Scandinavia, survival began with the hunt. Dense forests, high mountains, and stormy seas were filled with elk, boars, and seals, creatures that could feed a village or kill a careless hunter. Vikings learned early that hunting meant danger, but also honor. They rarely hunted alone. Groups worked like one body. Some drove animals into traps, others aimed bows or hurled spears with deadly focus. Trained dogs leapt through the undergrowth, flushing prey toward waiting blades. Every sound of snapping branches could signal either triumph or disaster. A single mistake against a charging boar or raging bear could end in blood on the snow. Yet for the Vikings, the real story began only after the kill. The fallen animal was more than food. The moment an animal was brought back to the village, it became the center of survival. Fresh meat was often turned into hearty stews that simmered all day in iron cauldrons, filling the hall with the rich aroma of boiling broth. Families ate roasted venison or wild boar around open fires, tearing at the flesh with knives while passing wooden bowls of soup thickened with barley and root vegetables. In a world of harsh winters, every hot meal felt like a victory against the cold. But the Vikings also understood that feasting today meant hunger tomorrow, unless food was preserved. They mastered simple yet effective techniques. Meat was rubbed with salt to draw out moisture, smoked over slow-burning fires until the air smelled of wood and fat, or sliced thin and left to dry in the cold winds that swept across their homeland. These methods allowed them to carry food on long voyages, feeding rowers as they pushed their longships across endless seas. Each strip of dried meat or salted fish was a lifeline, keeping warriors strong when farmland was far behind. Meat also carried social meaning. Great feasts were more than gatherings. They were statements of wealth and power. A chieftain who could pile tables high with roasted game showed his strength as a provider and leader. Guests who shared in the meal were bound by loyalty, oaths, and trust. Even in times of struggle, dividing meat among family or warriors was a way to prove honor. To the Vikings, food was energy, community, and prestige all at once. It was the taste of survival, but also the heart of their culture. Subscribe now to uncover more untold Viking stories of survival, battle, and legend. When the meat had been eaten, the hide was far from useless. In fact, it was one of the most valuable resources the Vikings gained from every hunt. In the brutal winters of Scandinavia, furs and skins were the difference between life and death. Cloaks lined with wolf or bear fur turned storms into tolerable hardships. Sheepskins wrapped children in warmth, while goatskins provided sturdy cloaks for farmers and travelers. Every layer of hide meant another chance to endure the frozen nights. But skins were more than simple protection. They were a visible marker of wealth and status. A chieftain could step into a hall draped in bear or fox fur, his presence speaking louder than any words. To wear the hide of a dangerous predator was proof of courage and success, a silent story stitched into clothing. Women also wore finely prepared furs, both for comfort and for prestige, while traders sought out exotic pelts to display power in faraway markets. Leatherwork became a craft essential to Viking life. Tanned hides were transformed into boots that gripped rocky shores, belts that secured weapons, and gloves that protected hands from icy winds. Warriors wore hardened leather armor, lighter than chainmail yet strong enough to resist blows. Even shields depended on leather bindings to hold their wooden frames together. Without leather, Viking warriors would have been far more vulnerable in battle. The use of hides went beyond clothing. Furs and skins became bedding, tents, and sometimes reinforcements for ship sails, keeping out wind and water. A family wrapped in blankets of animal skin slept warmer through the winter, while explorers traveling across unknown seas relied on hide-lined gear to shield them from bitter storms. Once the hides had been stripped and stored, the Vikings turned to what remained: bones, horns, and antlers. To them, these were not scraps, but raw material, ready to be shaped into tools, ornaments, and objects that blended survival with artistry. Bones were carved into everyday necessities. From cattle bones came spoons and ladles. From smaller fragments came needles and pins, and from stronger pieces came fishing hooks sharp enough to catch salmon in northern rivers. Children played with toys carved from leftover bones, while warriors carried bone dice and gaming pieces for Hanafatafol, a board game as popular as chess. Even in leisure, the remains of animals had a place. Horns carried both prestige and power, hollowed and polished. Cattle horns became drinking vessels raised high in mead halls. Warriors toasted victories from them, while guests judged a host's wealth by how finely the horn was decorated. Horns also roared across the battlefield as instruments, their deep calls signaling warriors to charge or warning villages of approaching raiders. In the still air of a fjord, the echo of a Viking horn could feel like the voice of the gods. Antlers, prized for their toughness, became handles for knives and axes, giving warriors a firm grip in battle and hunters steady tools for their craft. Craftsmen carved them into beads, pendants, and amulets, often etched with runes or animal shapes to offer protection. Some antlers were traded abroad, valued almost like currency for their durability and versatility. The brilliance of the Vikings lay in their imagination. A deer wandering in the forest could one day become a necklace, a spear handle, a child's toy, or a war horn that rallied men to fight. What made the Vikings remarkable was not only their courage in battle or skill at sea, but their ability to see value in what others discarded. The hidden parts of animals, sinew, guts, fat, and even brains were treasures in their own right, each transformed into tools that quietly sustained Viking life. Sinew, the tough fibers that connect muscle to bone, was stripped and dried to create thread and rope. Strong yet flexible, it stitched leather garments, repaired sails, and bound weapons together. Archers prized sinew for bowstrings, which gave their shots deadly tension. In this way, what once gave strength to the animal now gave strength to its hunter. Guts, cleaned and stretched, became waterproof casings. They were used to store food, wrap tools, or form fishing lines tough enough to withstand the pull of river salmon. In a land where metal was costly, these natural fibers were indispensable, providing solutions that iron alone could not. Fat was equally vital. Melted down into tallow, it lit homes with candles and lamps during the endless nights of winter. Fat also waterproofed boots and cloaks, sealing out snow and rain. And in the kitchen, it was pure energy, high in calories, perfect for fueling warriors and farmers alike. Even brains found purpose. Rich in oils, they were used in tanning hides, softening leather to make it durable and weatherproof. Without this strange but effective process, Viking cloaks, boots, and armor would never have lasted through the storms. Animals were symbols that connected the human world with the divine. Each creature carried meaning, woven into their religion and stories, shaping how the Norse people understood life and destiny. Wolves were feared and revered. Fenrir, the giant wolf of Norse myth, was destined to bring about the death of Odin during Ragnarok, the end of the world. To the Vikings, this story was a warning of uncontrollable chaos. At the same time, the wolf also represented loyalty and ferocity. Warriors who wore wolf skins believed they carried its untamed spirit into battle. Ravens held a sacred place as Odin's messengers. His two birds, Hugin and Munin, flew across the earth each day, returning with whispers of everything they saw. A raven's flight could be read as an omen, fortune, or disaster. Farmers, travelers, and warriors alike looked to the black wings above as signs from the god. Bears symbolized unstoppable strength. Some warriors called berserkers believed they were possessed by the bear's spirit when they entered a battle frenzy, losing all sense of pain or fear. To ordinary people, the bear embodied raw power, and defeating one was a mark of unmatched bravery. Horses, too, were sacred. They were offered in sacrifice at great feasts and rituals to honor gods like Odin and Freyr. Their blood, sprinkled on sacred sites, was thought to bring fertility, protection, and victory. No other animal was given as frequently to the gods. Even in myth, animals carried enormous weight. The world serpent Jörmungandr coiled beneath the seas, destined to rise at Ragnarok. Goats fed the gods in Valhalla, while stags grazed upon Yggdrasil, the great world tree. Each beast was a piece of the cosmic puzzle, representing balance, destruction, or rebirth. Animals also became the backbone of their wealth abroad. In a world where silver and gold were scarce in Scandinavia, it was furs, hides, and ivory that turned Viking merchants into powerful traders, stretching from the British Isles to the markets of the Middle East. Furs were among the most valuable exports. The harsh northern climate produced thick pelts of fox, marten, bear, and beaver, so prized in Europe that nobles and kings paid dearly to wear them. Viking traders carried bundles of these pelts across rivers and seas, exchanging them for silver, fine weapons, and exotic goods. A cloak of northern fur was more than warmth. It was a badge of nobility, and the Vikings knew how to supply it. Walrus ivory was another treasure of the north. In Greenland and Arctic waters, Vikings risked icy voyages to hunt walrus for their massive tusks. The ivory, smooth and pale, was carved into chess pieces, knife handles, and ornaments in distant lands. It became a luxury item in courts across Europe and even the Byzantine Empire. For a Viking crew, a single successful walrus hunt could mean a fortune in silver. Animal products also served as currency closer to home. Hides and furs were used in barter, traded for grain, iron, or labor. In diplomacy, gifts of prize pelts or decorated horns were tokens of friendship and power, sealing alliances between chieftains or impressing foreign rulers. A lavish gift of fur carried as much weight as a chest of coins. Through these exchanges, Vikings tied their rugged homeland to the wealth of distant kingdoms. Their mastery of turning animals into trade goods gave them access to treasures they could never produce themselves. Silk from the east, glassware from the south, and silver that flowed back into their economy. The story of the Vikings is not only about raids and longships. It is about how they mastered survival by using every resource around them. From the richest furs and ivory traded abroad to the simplest sinew binding a bow, nothing was wasted. Every hunt became more than food. It became warmth, tools, weapons, trade, and even faith. This ability to transform every part of an animal showed a mindset far ahead of its time. In today's world, when we talk about sustainability and living with less waste, we echo what the Vikings lived by every day. The Vikings weren't just raiders, they were innovators of survival. Subscribe now and join us for more epic Viking videos brought to life.